Sound is a type of wave that needs a
Right.
medium to, to move. But the thing is, like humans, and like many examples on Earth, our senses or everything that happening in the universe is not the only truth, if you want to call it like that. Our ears, our eyes, our nose, everything, we can only perceive because we have certain limitations. We can perceive certain things that there is not the entire universe, right?
Hi, everybody. This is Victoria Vesna, and you're listening to Vibrations Matter. I talk to artists, scientists, and everybody who's interested in light, sound, and frequencies. Join me.
So, hi, how are you,
Very
Santiago?
nice, Victoria. So nice to see you. It's a
So
happy
nice
new
to see you
year.
too. Thank you. It's
Yes,
New Year, a Western New Year happened. Now the New
yes,
Year of the Snake, and
exactly. Yes.
everything is changing so rapidly. We're all getting our skin together, and it's
Oh,
painful.
yes. It's been a crazy starting of the year. I
Oh my
understand.
goodness.
Yes.
Such a perfect
No,
time to look up in the skies and just
exactly.
remind ourselves that we're planetary citizens and that we have one
Exactly.
planet to live on and that we need to start really thinking that way.
No,
The
yes, 100%.
Yeah, the big problem is when you look up, there's more and more garbage that we're throwing into space.
That is true. But at least looking at the sky gives you hope. And
Exactly.
if we give up, it's going to be a disaster. So it is. I understand. Like I also feel frustrated sometimes. Like wherever you look, there is always a crisis. But at least there is a lot of people like you and many other people who tries to contribute a little bit.
I
Uh, you
agree. I
know.
think we're the
So
majority and that it's
yes,
not all on the material planes. So the space actually does give us the hope.
exactly.
So today I wanted to have you rewind your film all the way back to the first light bulb moment when you really thought, oh, I want to do this. I want to study space and how our planets work, how the cosmos work. What happened? What was that moment? Tell us about it.
It's thank you for asking. It's actually quite funny if you ask me from my perspective. So I mean, when I was a kid, obviously, like any kid, you are fascinated by many things, and dinosaurs, like space, astronauts, even football, if you want, like anything, because you're a kid, right? But for me, I think the really breaking through moment for my life was like I was always curious. That's for sure. Like I was always asking, and I was very, very curious in different curiosity that my brothers. I have two brothers, so they were also curious. But I was always asking why. I was the type of annoying kid that I was always to my mom and dad. But why? And my dad sometimes and my mom was like. I don't have an answer. It's sometimes things are like that. And then when you're a kid and you try to figure it out, it's difficult to grasp. Like why if you launch something on the sky it will fall because it does, and it's like okay, but why? So in this annoyingness, my dad I pushed my dad and mom to take me to watch a movie, and that movie was like the breaking through my life, which is funny because it was Apollo 13, the movie of
Ah,
it's a
yes.
amazing movie and everything. But I remember we took the last movie of the day because everything was sold out. But that was amazing because it matched that day with a lunar eclipse. So
Ah.
they didn't know, of course, my parents didn't know anything. So, of course, you go to the movie, you watch the movie, it's amazing, you know everything about the space exploration and the astronauts and the drama of the moon. And then suddenly I go out of the cinema and then I look at the sky immediately to see the moon, and then it's red. It's like this lunar eclipse when it's like the blood moon and everything. And in Mexico, I'm from Mexico City, right? So growing up in Mexico City, I could only look for two things in the sky. Well, three things. The moon, obviously, it was my always companion, and the Orion constellation, and Venus,
Nice.
that is always very bright. So for me, it was like really a mind-blowing thing to always look at the moon, but never actually think about that the moon is in the space, that it's a satellite that is orbiting around us, that there is so many things in the moon, like. And then in this movie it really opened my, I think maybe I was like 6 years old, 5 years old, I don't remember. So then starting with that, I just start asking my parents, like, how do I study this? Like
Already
yeah.
at that age.
Yeah, and then of course I continue in the school, and then it was more like to my teachers. I had this natural science class.
Mm-hmm.
I was curious, and then when I finished this school and then entered the high school, I asked my teacher, how do I do this to be like study space? But then in my ignorance, and also my teachers didn't know much. They say, well, you need to study something is called special relativity, but they
Uh-huh.
didn't know. It was just no, like saying random things to me because
Right.
it was like, and then I got fascinated because I misunderstood, because he said in English, which was rare for a teacher to say it in English,
Uh-huh.
and then I understood it was like a spatial, like the space relativity
Right.
of space. And then I was so triggered. I want to study this. I want to study this. Then I was always committed to enter physics, and in Mexico you need to do physics, 5 years physics, very hardcore, and then finally do the master in astrophysics and PhD in astrophysics and so on. So since then, I never had any other thinking like I want to do this. Yeah, since the movie, I mean.
Amazing to also see how culture influences how
Yeah,
science moves. I see it all the time with scientists that
exactly.
I work. It's
Yeah.
really fascinating, especially movies and science fiction. And
Yeah.
now
No.
now it's starting to kind of merge with,
Yes.
artists coming closer to science and vice versa.
Yeah.
And we're finally coming back together. So that's
Exactly.
such a wonderful thing. So when we met at UCLA, you were a
Mm.
postdoc.
Yes.
And what did you come to study and what brought you to LA?
Yeah, that's very nice. So when I came to UCLA, I came to this particular project that the idea was actually to understand how life can evolve in different planetary systems. So
Mm.
I was working back then with a professor there. She's called Smadar Naos. She's a great scientist and a great mentor. And then once we were just chatting in a conference, and we came up with this idea of raining rocks
Oh,
in exoworlds.
oh,
So it was a interesting thought. Like we chat a lot, and she's also very cheerful and she's very nice. And she told me like, what if actually instead of raining water in some exoplanets, maybe there is raining rocks? And I was, oh yeah, that's because I was always describing this research, but she put it in a very beautiful words. This was her doing in the sense of putting the raining rocks part. And the idea was to understand, like, imagine, Victoria, when the planetary systems are formed, there is a lot of chaos, right? Like there is a lot
right.
of little rocks. They are putting together to form planets after the star is formed and so on. So after you pass this epoch of chaotic systems, there is also a lot of leftovers of the system, which that's the thing currently I'm also studying. It's like comets or meteorites or like asteroids. All of this is the remnants of planet formation. But in some planetary systems, the gravity and the environment is so chaotic. It is still very compact, and there is a lot of things going on that these comets collide very much with the planets. And then if you think about the moon, going back to the moon, you just need to look at the moon and see how damaged is the moon, if you want to say it. is full of craters, right? So
That's
literally,
true. It got
literally.
bombarded.
Exactly, right? So then when I was talking with this Madar, I was using precisely that word, bombardment. And they were, yeah, I mean, it's being hit by many, many little asteroids. And then we like change the perspective and say, okay, what if we study what will be the collision rate or the collision probability in a planet to actually survive and then
Aha.
retain an atmosphere like Earth, and then you rain a lot of comets. They come like an Earth. Also, there is so many craters, and then there is so many
Sure.
evidence that there is meteorites all the time. Like every day, I don't know how many tons of meteorites are falling in on Earth. The difference is like these are they are not really harmful because they are small. If
That's
they're
right.
big, then like the dinosaurs, you trigger like mass extinction. So yeah, that was my project. We still are about to submit the last paper. We continue the research collaborations,
And
and we formulate.
who's the
Yeah,
professor, the PI that you came to work with, the name?
it's Madarnaos.
Asmodarnos. Yeah.
Yes,
And
she came at some point to one of the lectures at
yes, I
the
think
media
I met
center.
her
Yes,
briefly. Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yeah,
So we
yeah.
should
No,
reach
she's
out.
super nice.
I'd like to reach out to her actually
Oh,
again.
I think she will love, and also, I mean, she knows you in the sense that I talked so much about you to her, and then she's also very interested in art and science, and
Wonderful.
she herself, she's a painter in her
Aha.
own way, and then she creates also like based on her research and her vision and stuff, and she's very much involved in also helping students, mentoring, and creating bridge with people. That's why I also matched with her, and I was part of her group. But yeah, I'll put you in contact with. She's a
Please
great
do.
person.
Please
Yes,
do. So when you came, you already had some kind of art and science
yes,
collaboration vision, something that you wanted to instigate, which to me is so wonderful and unusual because
yeah,
usually junior scientists are so afraid to step
mm,
over into the art side because
yeah,
may actually damage their career. This is true less and less, but I always find
yeah,
it to be a bold move in early career. So tell
yeah.
us a little bit about this that you established in Mexico.
Nice. Yeah, so it's actually interesting my journey in art and science because so I was always very focused in saying I will be a scientist, I will be an astronomer, and that was my focus always. But there was always this part of me that I always loved art in any form of art, you know. And then I always thought like it's a pity when was in the bachelor. It's a pity that I cannot do both, right? And then I have one of my friends in the university asked me, well, why not? And in my head, it was always like, well, but I'm not talented about like I was always thinking like, you know, in the old-fashioned thinking of art, like it's like the classical art, and then you are either a musician or you are like a painter or a sculptor, something like
Right,
that. So
right, right.
in my head, I was always like, I'm not like that because I'm not trained in blah blah blah. And then, but a friend of mine like, but there is many expression of art, right? Like there must be something. So then in Mexico, there was there is actually this institute. It's called C3, which is a Center for Complex Systems. Um,
Mhm.
and then within that center, they open a tiny little office, literally it's very small, about art and science. And they had
Mhm.
an exposition of art and science when I was in the bachelor. So I got very much into like, oh, wow, this is amazing. I didn't know that was possible. Then when I moved to Netherlands to start my PhD, I started looking more for like these kind of installations, or like I always like installation artists, and you know, like go to museums and all of this. It was always fascinating for me. And then I realized there was the Royal Academy of Arts next to Leiden University, where I did my PhD near to Amsterdam, and in The Hague, in the Netherlands, they have the Royal Academy of Arts, and they have actually a master and PhD program in art and science.
Oh, wow.
Uh,
Yes, I'm
yeah,
familiar with this. I think you
yeah,
told me about it,
yes,
actually.
yeah, exactly. So they had the like you have in UCLA, they had the closing ceremony for the master students, and
Mhm.
they put it like as a general public, you can come and chat. And then I went there when I was my second year of PhD, and then I was like, wow, I was blown away from the work and stuff. And I talked to the director randomly because he literally was walking around. He said, "Do you like this?" And I was fascinating. We connect, and he invited me to create this seminar together, which it was when art meets scientists and scientists meet art. Cool stuff happen. It's a very long title.
Oh, very cool. And what year was
Yeah,
this?
this was like 2016, more or less. 2016, 2017, more or less, something like that.
Fantastic. So it's almost going to mark 10 years since
Yes,
you
it's
entered into the ArtSci
yeah,
realm. How beautiful.
exactly. It is
We,
beautiful. Yes,
we have to celebrate.
yes, that's my hope. Yes.
Yes, yeah,
Uh, but yeah, no, it's been a journey. Of course, I'm primarily a scientist in the sense that I do this for living.
sure.
So sadly, I don't have enough time and resources to do many collaborations as I wish. But it's been nice. Like every year, I'm active with some project, either involved directly or indirectly. But it's been fun. Yeah.
So that's where we start really diving into space and sound,
Yeah.
because you know that I've always been thinking about how to tap into the invisible and the micro
Yeah.
macro, and how everything is actually vibration and frequency. And so my curious question to a lot of scientists, especially astrophysicists, has been, is it really silent in space? And they're always, yes, it's a vacuum and there's no sound. And so you had the most interesting and exciting response to me, which is why I thought, oh, I have to ask Santiago again and share
Yeah.
his response with the rest of the world, because I think it's so beautiful to think in the way you
Yes.
do. So please take off on this, because it's wonderful, wonderful theory.
No, it's nice. I mean, like you, Victoria, I've been always fascinated by that. Like in general, the space, but not just to think about the formation or anything, but just going out of Earth. Let's say, let's keep it simple, which is not simple at all, right? But yeah, no, sound in general, um, and any type of communication or anything that we've been developing on Earth is very interesting. And then if you ask like a general public or even scientists, it's hard to answer. Like if I ask any physicist or mathematician or something, I'm pretty sure that they will have a hard time just even to describe what is actually sound in general, right? So you can go very like by definition, and then you can say, okay, sound is a type of wave that needs a
Right,
medium to move, and that is obviously 100% accurate. You need a
right.
medium like either air or water to move. But the thing is, like humans and like many examples on Earth, our senses or everything that happens in the universe is not the only truth, if you want to call it like that. Our ears, our eyes, our nose, everything, we can only perceive because we have certain limitations. We can perceive certain things that there is not the entire universe, right? Just even on Earth, like we cannot hear all the
That's
frequencies.
right.
We
Very
cannot
narrow.
hear exactly. It's
Yes.
very narrow. So as a humans, we are a receptors. All of our body is a receptor. Every receptor, we have ear is one receptor, the eyes is another receptor, the nose is another receptor, the hands are another receptor, so on and so forth. So when you go to the space, the basic principle is, okay, space is in a vacuum, right? And so then technically there is no air. Everything is like in a vacuum. But then we also know that there is electromagnetic waves, that they are more energetic waves, and that's like the entire full spectrum that we see so many times. We have radio waves, we have like ultraviolet, infrared, many different waves. Because of these electromagnetic waves, we manage actually to communicate on Earth, right? So like if you're like even on Earth that there is air and then there is all the medium to propagate. Now in my house, even if I remove all the electronics and then I shout, "Hey, Victoria, how are you?" You will never hear me, right? Because my all my
There's
sound
no
mute.
medium.
Exactly. So it will travel, but it will mix. It will get,
Mhm.
whatever. It will get lost in the space and time, right?
Right,
So we need
right.
we need like these kind of devices, like headphones and electronic things, to actually be able to propagate, even though we are already in a medium like on Earth. So we move ourselves to the space, and then let's say we are the astronauts in the International Space Station, or just walking around and so on. There's many cartoons, right? Like you say, oh, you cannot talk in the space because you talk, there is nothing that it will propagate. But we are clever humans, right? So we engineer certain instruments in order to propagate. So every atom, every part of our body becomes like a transmitter and receptor. We just need one more electronic. In this case, you are in the suit, you are in the medium of a vacuum chamber, but you put something inside with a suit that everything in your body becomes the propagator and the receptor, right? So then you put like a microphone or whatever, and that microphone transform all your voice and everything sound the sound wave into an electromagnetic signals that they travel to the satellites to Earth, and then you transform all the signal, and then you get what we are talking about, right? So everything is post-processing, but in reality also is because you need a medium that the medium becomes you.
Isn't that amazing if you
Yes,
think about it? How cool is
yeah,
that? That we are the medium, right?
exactly.
And so how we relate and coordinate with the space and all the technologies that expand our very, very narrow field of our
Yeah.
senses is what's allowing us to go to this place and understand our way of being in different ways. It's deeply philosophical, actually, if you think
Yes, it
about it.
is. No, I agree. And then also comes back to your amazing project, right? Like Stardust in general. So we are in the universe, let's say in this astronaut body and whatever, but it is the same matter. It's just like
Yes,
recombined, either in a spacesuit or in a human body or
that's
in
right.
dust that is actually traveling into the space.
Yes.
And even more, like the same signal that is going to be from the vibration of my mouth going to the microphone, going to the electromagnetic
Mm,
waves, the radio waves that catches here, also they propagate through the space, right? And they
of
interact
course.
with dust, there is a lot of interference, there is a lot of things. So it is, for me at least, it's fascinating to think that this, like if you make kind of different types of eggs, you know, like you can make a scrambled eggs or you can make a flipped eggs, whatever. They look different, but it's the same egg.
It's the same. It's the same. And it brings us back to the saying, we are all made of stardust, which is
Exactly.
so
Yes.
true. And to me, so relevant right now when there's so much nationalism and going into
Yeah.
smaller and smaller boundaries of who we are. It's just so sad to see how limited people can be. Even people who go out into space, they have such a limited
Yeah.
way of thinking. And this
Yeah.
is so
Exactly.
sad. I remembered, and actually, I wanted to bring it up a little bit, where you were saying that astrophysicists are now really concerned about all the space junk and all
Oh
the
yeah. No.
satellites and this in the space that we can explore, that our vision is getting blurred and our sense of what's possible is also getting blurred. So in a very
Yeah.
strange way, the very people who have the ability and the means to go out and do these incredible explorations are also kind of obscuring our view and
Yeah.
their own view, because it's all about, in the end, it's all about our intent and our philosophy of how we see the
Yeah.
world. So talk a little bit about this, because we had these discussions, and I think it would be really important for audiences to hear, because we are in this age where you know, Elon Musk is pretty much defining how we're going. And yeah, so take it on.
Yeah, this is a great question, Victoria, a great topic. Like I always been also fascinated, but in the sense of, concern, fascinating about because so deep about this topic. From my perspective, it all goes back to the first civilizations. Like if you look at the human evolution in terms of technology, which is correlated with also the society itself, right? How we evolve. So we think about, actually, I think not a lot, because when I was in the like secondary school, there was no cell phones. Like to me, like I mean, they were, but they were for the rich people. And when I reached university, I got my tiny little first phone. Nowadays, we have like so much technology in that short amount of years. If you go a little bit back before, to go like really jump technologically speaking, it was maybe like 100 years or a little
That's
bit
right.
more. Now we're talking about within 20 years or so on, it's been like
Yes.
increasing rapidly. Like now we have also AI and all of this, So what I want to say with this is that and it's also concern of me is that as we advance in technology, we start just focusing on ourselves. And that is very dangerous because back in the day, civilizations were actually built based on the sky. There was like the calendars, the way that everything was interacting. It was a society based on how, okay, we need food. We need to work together as a community. We need, wood to build houses. We need this, we need that. So societies start creating many, many things, but it was because kind of survival and evolution and everything. So people had to interact a lot to think about, okay, now is a lunar eclipse. What does that mean for our society? And then religion was, present and so on. So as we move forward in terms of technology and advances, we narrow down our head to a phone, like
Yes.
where you are just scrolling all the time, including myself, and then the problem is that all your other problems or like the bigger picture of humanity, it gets, oh, I need to pay my bills. I need to do this. I need to do that because society is just pushing you in a direction that everything is so synthesized, so easy, if you want to say it in a way, that you don't go forward. So there is people like Elon Musk and many other people, that they have powerful, they have power. And then how do you control a society in many ways is by not let them think too much. Like they are more concerned, like, okay, I give them a little bit here and there entertainment, and then you don't start thinking about the universe or so on. So all of these constellations are all of these, trash that is very concerning, but people in power in that way, they just look for immediate answers. So the astrophysics community in that way, or including myself, it is really, really going back to the, like the Middle Ages, where we didn't have any information to look at the sky. And it's not because of the astrophysicist itself, it's just because of the people. They will not be able to understand that there is a universe or there is a vast knowledge that we can discover. And then basically they are chopping our hands to study this and move forward.
That's really sad because they're also doing it to themselves and to us collectively. And to me, that's what's actually interesting, because technology in it of itself is not bad. In fact, it's pretty amazing what we can do.
Yeah.
The fact that you and I can talk with very little delay, this truly, again, if you go back to even 10 years ago, we couldn't have done it so seamlessly. You're sitting in Vienna, I'm in Los Angeles, and we're talking. This is beautiful. And the fact that we can go to other planets, that we can do all this. How do we shift the consciousness is really the question, because it's such a arrogant, materialistic point of view.
Yeah.
And to have this much power in hands, it could be so amazing. It could be truly a kind of a new era for humanity.
Yeah, 100%.
And I'm wondering, what is it that holds it back when you have so much power to go into space, the fact that you have a certain perception can even colorize that, it's just
Yeah.
blowing my mind. I mean, one of the things where I was just really, I even now I'm kind of speechless listening to Bezos from Amazon talking about how we can stay with our way of life and do whatever we've been doing so far. But how about if we throw all our trash, including our toxic trash, into space? Because there's so much room there, and it's just going to float around. And he literally was saying this. I was,
Yeah.
and even now I'm kind of speechless because again, we have somebody who has so much power in their hands and
Yeah.
so much ability. And there's this, actually, I think I understand that they're also going into space. And you just wonder, what is it that we can do as artists and scientists to kind of help them shift their view? Because it's not all bad. And I don't want to fall into a trap of blaming them. I think it's a lot of it
Yeah.
is our society and the way it's framed and the way our perception of how things work and basing it so much on materiality. And then,
Mm.
of course, the bottom line is education, right? And just
Yeah.
really, how do we teach our children to
Yeah.
think of themselves as planetary citizens and to really understand our place in cosmos and how you have vibrations even if you're in a vacuum.
Yes.
So I'm very curious about your thoughts about that, and
Mm.
also what your research is now and where you're going with it now. I'm always inspired to hear where you're going.
Nice, it's nice. It's such a interesting topic. Honestly, for me, like it's honestly something that I discuss very often, also with colleagues and friends.
Yes, yes.
Because I think like you and me that we are in this world also in kind of also education and art and science and all of this. It obviously hits more, right? Because
Right.
we see it from our perspective. But I think really the main problem is to really take back the people that they are so much focused in their everyday life in the sense of survival. Like
Mm-hmm.
I've seen so many comments. I ask people, I even, like some family members even talking about this, like when they ask, what do you do or what is astronomy or art doing to the world? And then you start explaining, you go and try to make it in the most digestible way. And then they say, yeah, but that doesn't give me anything to me personally. Like if someone goes and discover a new black hole, it's not going to give me food or anything or a new iPhone, because it's like so far from me. And then there's like, why would I care if the government spent billions of dollars or, in this kind of people who is just searching for a black hole, which looks like very science fiction, instead of giving it to me that I need to
Right.
go to my grocery stores. So I think that narrow thinking, that's the biggest problem. And that's the biggest challenge for us to
Yes.
actually remove the blind from the people, that this is not like one straight line, right? Like society, it's a fractal. It's all interconnected.
Yes,
That
exactly.
like whatever I do, not only for saying I discovered a black hole, it is to advance humanity and society. And most importantly, which I think that is the big difference that we have as an evolution of humans, is basically we think further. We are philosophers, humans. We are philosophers, and that's why philosophy was the mother of all science and art. Right? It's the
That's
beginning
right.
of everything. It's questioning why, how I want to do this. Like even if you're an artist, and then people think like, oh, what an artist do to me, or like for the
Right.
society.
Same
There's
thing.
so many things. So I think the challenge is really go back to the basic roots and show them how amazing is critical thinking and the knowledge itself. How amazing can be, like even if you are, working in a company, just by evolving your thoughts and your knowledge, you will be more productive. You will be more into the job. You will be more efficient in many ways, because even just reading every random science fiction novel or whatever article you want, just make you think. And
That's
that
right.
is how we advance. So like for me, what I try to do, and that's my small fight, is I give a lot of, as you know, public talks, and then I do this art science collaboration, try to reach people. Now connecting with what you asked me about my work, I'm also collaborating in my new institute in Vienna. They are creating a science center, and the idea is to art science center actually. And the idea is to
Fabulous.
to connect with the people in in Vienna, in the surroundings, in Lower Austria as well. And into all the international people to create programs for the little kids, adults, and like we have programs for all types of people. And then I think that's our small fight, like try to talk to governments and make them invest, you know, in at least
Yes,
in
yes.
Vienna. I'm actually mind blown by, first of all, this institute is called VISTA. It's like the VISTA Science Center experience in Lower Austria. And now they are going to invest in Vienna to the, maybe you heard about this, Victoria, but they are going to create the Vienna Science Center. It's called like that. And it's going to be the biggest center of outreach and art and science in entire Germany and Austria. It's in the entire
Fabulous.
region. And that is only focused in basically communicating science and art, because they have both things. Um,
So
so
critical. It's so
yes,
critical. And it to me is important that these are experiences, that these
yeah,
are immersive experiences that don't lecture, that are not dogmatic, that bring
yeah,
people into the sense of awe
yeah,
and that understand that they're part of this, that it's not outside of them, that the whole universe is part of you and
exactly.
you're part of it. And so I'm very happy to hear that. I didn't know that they were going to expand it to that level, but it's
Yes,
fantastic.
yes.
Such
Yeah,
an
no,
amazing thing.
I think it's like, as I always say to the people I always talk, I come here not to teach you anything. I come
Right.
here to inspire you in the sense of, like, at least if I can put a seed, you know, in your
Exactly.
own thoughts, and then think about why. I even say, like, you don't need to believe me anything I say, but just question me, like,
There you
you know,
go.
if
So curiosity is the mother of
curiosity.
everything. It's where you
Exactly.
started, right? Like some people walk into the room, turn on the light, and they just walk into the room. And some people turn on the light and go, wait, how did this happen?
Exactly.
What,
Yes.
where did
No.
this light come from? How did it
Yeah.
turn on? How does electricity work? And you start digging, 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 and then you find the
Exactly.
whole
Uh,
universe in the smallest motion.
and
So,
I think that's the thing we should at least I try to share this. Like, people
yes.
also get triggered that. Like, I've been stuck for a week, like in my hobby on my things, to understand how fax work. Like
Oh,
a fax. I was
really?
like,
And
I understand the basic principle of a fax, but I transfer myself back on the days when the fax was created,
that's
and then
right.
think about, like, back on the days, the technology that they had. It's amazing. So these are small things, I would love that
Yes,
people goes out and say, oh, but actually, how do you even create plastic for the trash bin?
that's
you know?
right. And also, how does a plant work and
Exactly.
how do
Yeah.
animals exist and how do we interrelate? All these questions really bring you closer to yourself. So
Yeah.
I think it's critical to create experiences, and this is where we come together as artists and
Mhm.
scientists and where the line blurs. And
Yeah.
when you start thinking about the sounds and how that connects people outside of language and vibrations and frequencies
Yeah.
outside of culture, that it's something that is at the very bottom of all existence and how we interconnect in these invisible and inaudible patterns, people really respond to that. And
Yeah.
we really need to listen to everything from atomic level up, because nature is really telling us so loudly with all the fires and
Yes.
floods and earthquakes and everything else. Wake up, people. You're not alone
Yeah.
here.
I think you nailed it there, Victoria. It's so true. It's like so much. basically telling us in front of our face. It's like if someone in front of you is put in front, and it's like, move because there is a tram coming, and you're like, yeah, sure, no problem.
And you would think with all the extreme events that the question would be asked, and you hear a lot of, well, let's see, how do we build bigger bridges and stronger
walls.
How about we change our behavior a little bit?
Yeah. No, but I mean, can you just imagine if we actually put just a little more effort as a government in general? I'm talking about all the governments in the
That's
world.
right.
It actually to knowledge and development of this like we will live in a completely different situation.
Absolutely. And it really could go there. I think there's still that potential. It seems to be going in the wrong direction, but a lot of the destruction maybe will really wake people up. I don't know how much destruction we need to wake people up. Those who are decision makers, let's say. Speaking of destruction, one of the things I wanted to ask you is about the solar maximum. Because I actually am absolutely fascinated by the fact that all of these events that we've been experiencing since 24 and into now is happening in parallel to the solar maximum that's been spewing out huge flares and magnetic fields. And there's theories that go back to the 20s with a Russian scientist whose name escapes me now, who was looking at how wars and different events actually correlate to these kind of maximum moments in the solar flares that happen cyclically in cycles every 11, 12 years. Can you tell us a little bit from your perspective how you see it, and if you know anybody studying it? I'm very curious.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with this Russian scientist that you mentioned, but I do know, I've been reading sometimes as well on that. It's interesting what you mentioned, that about the solar cycle. I don't know if there is a strict correlation. I will need to dig more into detail, like to see data, and see more what's happening. But what is actually true, and this is important to notice, is like so there is a correlation within how Earth as a planet and the atmosphere it's evolving together with the solar maximums. Right? So there is actually a correlation on how as a planet we function depending of the solar maximum, and that has to do with the magnetic fields, with all the pollution, all the radiation, and so on. So it's definitely something that people is being fascinating to understand these cycles and how you relate it directly to society. Because so what is actually society, right? Society is the humans basically concentrating and then experiencing basically what is happening on the planet, indirectly or directly, right? So I don't know if there is really a correlation per se. What I know is basically every cycle there is a change in the society, and that is more because we are suffering what is the planet is experiencing. And it's as simple also, like as an example, it's like climate change in a way, right?
Yes.
So climate change, the way we behave, the way we act, the way we do is also correlated with what happened in LA, for instance. It's been always fires, right? The fires are not isolated events. The fires, they are correlated because of a change of the planet. And the change of the planet is, like in this case, is climate change. There is a lot of pollution, and there is so on and so forth. But also, like these solar maximums, they do affect the planet in many ways. And then there is waves of things that maybe people doesn't exactly correlated in the sense that, oh, you see the solar flare and I will change my mind. But indirectly in your life, you are exposed to many different changes in the planet. And that is physics. It's nothing to do with your beliefs or anything. It's more like about
yes. So this is complete. Okay, so I looked up the names to try to remember because it's a difficult one. It's Alexander Czyżewski, and he studied the connection between solar flares and human activity. And what you're talking about with the cycles that happen about every 11.6 years or so, which is interesting because it's almost 12, and 12 is kind of the cycle that most indigenous cultures from way back kind of did their calculations. But he also proposed that sunspot activity actually influenced human activity, revolutions, wars, epidemics, and he proposed that solar flares affected electrical usage and plane crashes, right? And
yeah, that is for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and he particularly observed and was curious about biological rhythms, especially with the heart. And
Yeah.
then he noticed also that mental illness kind of goes up, and so on, so on. And unfortunately, Stalin threw him into a gulag because he started really being suspicious of why is he looking into this.
Yeah.
But to me, it's really fascinating because once again, we're talking about waves, right? We're talking about these huge magnetic waves. How much larger is the sun than the planet Earth? Like thousands of
Oh,
times.
it's just thousands of Earths
Uh,
in the sun.
like
Yes.
thousands and thousands. So here we go again with human arrogance, right? I mean, to think like, oh, that doesn't affect us.
Yeah.
How is it possible that the the sun that is our source of everything that we depend on for life, for food, for everything, literally. You take
Yeah.
out the sun, you're done. Even when you're talking about the eclipse, which I gratefully experienced last year,
Yeah.
that moment, those couple of minutes when the sun was covered, you could just feel the difference.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's unbelievable how much we depend on the sun. And yet we somehow think it doesn't affect us when these
Yeah.
flares
No.
are going. So
I think the message here, is basically that we are connected as one ecosystem.
that's
That we
right.
are an ecosystem on Earth. Like it's just like, as I was saying before, maybe you don't understand, or you don't feel it, or you don't see it, which is the argument many people. If I don't see it, I don't believe it, or so on. But
That's right.
definitely, like everything that happened to Earth, the minimum thing that happened to Earth, it will affect us in one way or another, that we don't feel it immediately, but it is going to change our society, our perspective. So I don't know about this correlation with the solar maxims, but I'm pretty sure that there is a correlation in the sense of there is a change in the atmosphere, there is a change in the radiation, there is a change in the Earth itself that obviously will correlate to a change in the humans' behavior. And
So
what you're
this
saying actually about eclipse, it's actually a very good point. Like if you think about the ancient civilizations, like eclipses, just particularly that phenomena that is very visible, really mark the beginning or the end of cycles of entire cultures. Even calendars or so on, and when do I need to start putting all the seeds for farming, or when it's like the new war coming, let's wait until the blue moon, or like the blood moon, or so these kind of things reflects like how much we are connected as an ecosystem, and that
exactly.
we cannot ignore also that. Yeah.
Exactly. And so these cycles happen kind of 11, 12 years, right? They
Yeah.
happen. We know that. So we've established that. That's the one thing that the scientists did establish. And
Yeah,
and
exactly.
scientists have been following it since. What I'm thinking, and as an artist, I can make postulations that don't have proof. So I can put it out there to scientists like a science fiction writer. I what I see, and from my kind of filter of perception, is that the climate change is literally throwing oil into the fire. And
Yeah.
that would explain why everything has really amplified with these fires and floods and
Yeah.
natural disasters. But then the natural disasters we are part of. So of course it's going to affect our health, our mental, physical
Yeah.
health, our communities, everything shifts, and the more you resist it, the worse it gets, right? So
Yeah.
naturally, people are going to migrate if there's situations where they can't live. And if you put a wall there, what's going to happen? I mean, it's such a kind of small way of thinking. So I
Yeah.
really appreciate scientists like you who are willing to open up the door and are willing to ask the questions without necessarily having proof, and also work with artists as we have done to bring in the audiences to a different way of thinking, an awe of our existence in this, like you say, the planetary ecosystems, to really
Mm.
start thinking there's an ecosystem inside me, inside my room,
Mm.
inside my
Yeah.
city, my country, the planet, beyond, beyond, beyond. And the moon is always there. And and I'd just like to end with one story for you to retell, to share with everybody else,
Nice.
that just made me kind of feel like, wow, I'm so pleased to know you. You were saying a story how you went, you'll correct me, but what I remember is that as a child, you went on a field trip in Mexico.
Oh, yeah.
And yes,
Oh,
so
yes,
you
I
tell
know
it.
which story it
I
is.
don't want to retell it, but it's a beautiful story to end with.
Yes, no, no, it's actually that connects basically what you asked me at the beginning of our conversation, right? And that I say that in Mexico City, I mean, I grew up Mexico City, big city, is like, 20 million people or something like that. The sky was always fascinating to me, but also very sad because you look at the sky and then there is the moon, beautiful moon, always, Orion. I find fascinating with Orion because it was the only thing I could see, and Venus, that is the brightest point in the sky, and nothing else. I mean, if you were lucky, maybe one little star, it was there. Then exactly what you were saying, I had this school trip. We went to the mountains, like to camp and these activities. And literally, like the movie, like Look Up or Don't Look Up, I don't remember the name. It
Don't
was
look
like a
up.
revelation of my life, like to look at the sky and see that, oh my God, but there are actually thousands of billions, or I don't know how many stars, and that is, I think, like these kind of moments are the moments that right now I try to share with the people also, like they have this experience, right? Because this is fascinating for me, going back to Mexico City after such a trip and then see like three stars again, make me wonder and ask why, like what happened,
Right,
like
right.
how, like I don't understand why being in the mountain, like obviously was a kid, being in the mountain in such a beautiful scenario with all the stars and everything, and the darkness that gives you chills in the skin, and all of this, and then move back to the city where there is a moon and three stars or four. I think
Exactly.
that's a really break thing. And then actually in LA is also, I mean, obviously very big city, you cannot see many things, but you just go 1 hour and a half or 2 hours to Joshua Tree. And that's a spectacle. Like it's just fascinating. And I think many people should experience this to.
Absolutely. And now in LA with the fires, it's even worse. You really cannot see
Exactly. Yeah.
anything. So the assignment is, how do we remove the veil and
Yeah,
actually
exactly.
show what's there and have people listen? Because the other thing that comes along with the pollution that obscures our sight is the noise pollution. So
Yes. Yeah.
you have the noise that's on top of the obscurations, and then you have your devices and all the other stuff going on. Of
Yeah.
course, you're not going to be connected to the universe easily unless you
Yes.
close your eyes and realize that it's all in there. Uh,
Exactly.
Right? But what you experienced was not only looking up and seeing this amazing potential, a possibility, or what we are part of, but also you had the quiet, right?
Yes.
You heard animals, you heard
Yeah.
trees, you heard other children with you talking in a different way. It wasn't
Yes.
constant interruptions and noise that
Yeah.
just completely drowns the beauty of our existence.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think it's important that people reconnect with themselves.
Yes.
Like you did also this installation for meditation, like part of the Alien Star does is also meditation, and you've done so
Yes.
many other things, but not just you, like many people. Because I think really it's important to, as you say, like we live in a so chaotic world. Like there is so much noise of everything. Like our life is in a noise background constantly, right? Like it's noise from everything basically. But going to the nature, or just be with yourself, experience what nature has to offer. I think that's in my opinion, the missing piece on why humanity is going a little bit backwards instead of forward. Because then it becomes more about quick reaction. We need to solve this tomorrow. I need to go and do the groceries. I need to blah, blah, blah. Or I need to buy me a new Rolex. This kind of situation in anything. But there is no moment of reflection. There is no moment of connection. Like in my case, I'm not very good at meditating, but that doesn't mean that I don't meditate.
Exactly.
It's different ways of meditation, and many people think, oh, it's just like you sit and think. But no, there is a way to enjoy nature, to think about yourself, to reflect what is going on in society, what is going on Earth, why there is now fires in my house, why my house was burned. Is not an accident, like what happened in LA. It is, a global effect. So all of
That's
these
right.
things, I think that is the missing puzzle. Like we need to bring back people to reconnect with themselves and in our ecosystem, and then reflect and move forward. Because sadly, we are in this period where all the humans on Earth, we are going to suffer politically, and not only politically, but also geographically, and with climate change and everything that is happening. We live in a area now that is going to be quite challenging for us. So I
Yes.
think it's time
Yes.
to, like you and me, raise a voice and try to bring people to the art, science, and humanities as well. So
What a beautiful way to end. That's a beautiful
nice.
message. And we are so committed, both of us. And I so look forward to seeing you in Vienna. So
Yes, no,
I'm
no,
very
so
happy
nice,
you're
Victoria,
there.
as
It's
always.
one of my favorite places.
Yeah, no,
I
I
love
love the
it there.
city as
Yes.
well. It's such an amazing place, and thank
Lots
you
of,
so much for
of
inviting me to this conversation.
course,
Yeah.
of course.